Hello, my friends. Today, I want to start right away with the fact that everything happening right now uh, points to the possibility that we are just hours or maybe days away from World War III. Iran is already threatening to strike American bases if the US joins the war. Iran has prepared missiles to strike US bases in the Middle East if the United States enters the war, writes the New York Times, citing American officials familiar with intelligence reports. Two Iranian officials stated that the Islamic Republic would attack American bases in the Middle East, starting with those in Iraq, if the US joins Israel's war. At the same time, Iran is actively calling on all of its allies to join the fight, and as we know, one of those allies is Russia, which signed an agreement with Iran. While the agreement doesn't include a clause that obligates Russia to enter the war, it does commit them to providing military support. That's why Iran's ambassador is essentially pressuring Russia right now. So far, Russia has only condemned Israel's strikes on Iran, but hasn't offered any real assistance. The Iranian people will never forget who stood with us in these times and who chose inaction, the ambassador said. In this way, Iran is effectively calling on all of its allies to join the war. US Navy and allied warships have already left their naval base. All US Navy and allied vessels have set sail from the naval base in Bahrain, located on the coast of the Persian Gulf. Air raid sirens have been sounded in Israel. Iran has announced the launch of missiles and released video footage to accompany the announcement. All of this shows that the war is escalating rapidly. It's only a matter of time before both the United States and Russia are forced to enter the conflict. Friends, perhaps that's exactly why Trump walked out of the summit yesterday and didn't even speak with Zelensky, because today the war in Ukraine is becoming a secondary issue and the main events are unfolding in Israel. In fact, at the summit today, Trump made it clear Ukraine will have to wait. Overnight, Iranian media reported that tonight the world should expect a surprise that will be remembered for a century.
The operation carried out so far was only a warning meant as a deterrent. A punitive operation will follow soon. We warn residents of the occupied territories, especially Tel Aviv and Haifa, you must save your lives and leave these areas. Do not sacrifice yourselves to the animalistic desires of Netanyahu. Free people of the world, be assured, the great nation of Iran will avenge the blood of the martyrs, God willing, by the power of God, the Islamic Republic's armed forces.
Yet another great nation, just like Russia, which considers itself powerful, may ultimately face destruction. Overnight, it was reported that at least 20 ballistic missiles were launched toward Israel. And this is just the beginning of the assault. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, declared the battle begins. As a result, US strategic bombers are now on high alert and ready for takeoff. US B-52H Stratofortress strategic bombers, which are capable of carrying nuclear weapons, are being prepped for launch at Diego Garcia Air Base. A total of 4 aircraft are expected to be involved in the potential operation, according to AFP. Trump has already posted several messages. In one, he wrote, Iran had good sky tracking systems and other defense equipment. There was a lot of it, but none of it compares to the stuff made and developed in America. Nobody does it better than good old USA. Another post was directed at Iran's supreme leader. Khamenei. We know exactly where your so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but he's safe for now. We're not going to take him out, at least not yet. But we don't want to see missiles fired at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Meanwhile, Israeli sources are saying that the US will most likely join the war against Iran. The United States is expected to join the war against Iran tonight, reports Clash Report, citing Israel's Channel 12. We will continue to monitor the terrifying developments unfolding in Israel and Iran. But due to these escalating events, oil prices have already surged by 5% and appear to be climbing even higher. This, in turn, benefits Putin because Trump had been working to drive prices down in order to cut off Russia's ability to finance its war in Ukraine. And now, however, Russia may soon have even more money to continue its war. But the situation in Ukraine is also extremely dire, both on the front lines and under continued missile attacks. The US government has commented on yet another brutal Russian strike. Yes, we are aware of the overnight attack on Kyiv, which resulted in numerous casualties, including the tragic death of a US citizen. We strongly condemn these strikes and extend our deepest condolences to the victims and the families of all those affected. The president has recently made clear his stance on strikes against civilian areas. I want to emphasize that the safety of US citizens abroad remains our top priority. We can confirm the death of a US citizen in Ukraine and are prepared to offer all possible consular assistance. Out of respect for the family, we cannot share additional details at this time. In other words, they are concerned, but right now there is little they can do, especially with Trump fully preoccupied by the crisis in Iran and Israel. Meanwhile, Ukraine's own war rages on. Let's take a look at the current battlefield situation. In the Sumy direction, Russian forces have significantly increased their activity after Ukrainian troops brought in reinforcements and managed to halt the advance. In response, the Russians are now pushing even harder, launching up to 40 assaults per day, which is an extremely high number for such a small section of the front. On top of that, Russia continues intense shelling and is using FPV drones to monitor and attack nearly all frontline and border areas. And here is what's truly alarming. Ukrainian sources say that there are essentially no defensive fortifications along the border in the Sumy region. How do you show what doesn't exist? In the border zone of Sumy, fortifications are completely absent, reports Deep State. On the Zhuravka, Novenke, Basivka axis, there are no fortifications at all, not until the Hotyń, Pisarivka, Kiyanivska, Kharpivshenka, Yunakivka line, and Russia knows this very well. That's why they're applying pressure here with the large infantry formations. Soldiers on the ground have confirmed this. The only functional defensive positions were the ones personally built by the troops themselves, suitable for shelter and holding the line. You can see this clearly in public footage showing Russian troops advancing right up to the border. Basic engineering barriers were never built. No anti tank trenches, no dragon's teeth, no razor wire. Even minefields, which could have at least slowed the Russian advance, were missing. Only combat brigades themselves managed to lay in mines, and that's what saved parts of the line. In fact, we've seen videos showing Russian motorcyclists hitting mines and flying into the air. So, what happened? One factory One factor may have been constant drone strikes, which interfered with construction. When visiting the Kursk region, Russian forces used Lancet drones to strike vehicles even at access points. But even with that, military sources say the fortifications could have been built. Russian activity at the time wasn't overwhelming, and drones mostly targeted vehicles and infantry, not construction crews, so at least some basic defenses could have been installed. Let's not forget, millions were allocated for building up these defensive lines in Sumy. The same thing was said about the border with Belarus. We were told it was well fortified and protected. Let's hope Russia doesn't decide to test those Belarusian border defenses, because there is a real chance they may not exist either. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. In the Kharkiv direction, the situation remains relatively stable for now. All Russian attacks have come to a halt, and even near Vovchansk, there are currently no new developments. But let's be clear, this could just be the calm before the storm. The Russians are not abandoning their plans. On the contrary, they are continuing to pull in reserves, preparing for the next phase. In the Dvorichna direction, Russian forces are trying to break through near Dovhenka and the village of Kamenka. However, there is no success on their end. Ukrainian defenders are holding firm and successfully repelling all assaults. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian forces are assaulting Golubivka, Petropavlivka, and attempting to push through near Stepovanovoselivka. However, Russian activity remains relatively low, just a few assaults per day. So far, all attacks have been successfully repelled, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, Russians are attacking Boguslavka and Kopanki, and are also trying to break through near Raihorodka. But as of now, no breakthroughs have been recorded, and the situation has remained stable over the past 24 hours. In the Lyman direction, Russian forces are assaulting the area near Kolodezi and attempting breakthroughs around Glushenkova and Druzhelyubivka. Despite having achieved significant tactical gains, there have been no new changes in the past 24 hours. Instead, Russian forces are bringing in reinforcements and trying to fortify their newly captured positions to continue the advance. The situation here remains highly dangerous and unstable. Meanwhile, in the Siversk direction, following the capture of Grigorivka, Russian troops are trying to push further forward. However, aside from that, Russian activity remains relatively low, and no territorial changes have been reported in the last 24 hours. In the Kramatorsk direction, Russian forces continue their assaults on Orikhovo-Vasilivka, but they have failed to straighten the front line. All Russian attacks are being successfully repelled by the Ukrainian forces. In the Kostantinivka direction, Russian troops are storming Chasiv Yar and attempting to advance toward Bila Hora. Near Kurdyumivka, they are launching assaults on Deliyevka, Sherbinivka, and Popiev Yar. The level of activity in this sector remains very high, with Russian forces trying to maintain full surveillance and control of the frontline area using FPV drones. However, no territorial changes have been reported in the past 24 hours, and the Ukrainian forces continue to hold their ground. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russian forces remain highly active, attempting to break through near the villages of Shevchenko Pershe and Koptive. Fighting also continues in and around Myrolubivka, Промінь, Удачне, and Novosargiyevka. Despite ongoing shelling, Ukrainian forces are holding the front line without significant changes. At this time, Russian troops haven't achieved major breakthroughs. The status of the village of Koptiva remains unclear, as Russian sources claim it's under their control. Yet, no visual confirmation or combat footage has been provided. This claim remains unverified. In the Novopavlivka direction, Russian assaults are ongoing. Russian troops are attacking positions near Горіхове, Zelený Kut, and engaging in battles on the outskirts of Oleksiivka, attempting to advance toward the village of Zaporizhia. However, no changes in territorial control have been observed in the past 24 hours, and heavy fighting continues. In the Velika Novosilka area, Russian forces are assaulting the villages of Shevchenko and Vilne Pole and attempting to advance from Novosilka. They're also carrying out intense shelling across the sector, but have failed to make any further breakthroughs. For now, the situation remains unchanged, with Ukrainian forces successfully holding the line. In the Gulay-Pole direction, Russian troops are attacking the village of Malynivka and conducting heavy artillery strikes. Despite Russian claims of breakthroughs into the village, the front line hasn't shifted, and Ukrainian forces are not allowing the Russians to gain a foothold. In the Zaporizhia direction, Russian forces are attempting to push through near the village of Nesteryanka and conducting regular shelling. However, the situation remains stable, and all Russian assaults have been successfully repelled by Ukrainian defenders. In the Kherson direction, Russian troops launched a single attack near the Antonivsky Bridge yesterday, which was successfully repelled by the Ukrainian forces. No new assaults were reported overnight, and the front line remains unchanged. Meanwhile, shelling of the right bank continues. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.